Thank you, Carlos, and thanks, Professor Eugeni, for accepting to come here, find the time to do this final keynote address. I also wanna congratulate all the PhD candidates that we have here, because it's been like super hard, no, 2 intense weeks with a lot of activities, no, workshops, and if you are here alive and well, like you survived, so that means you're gonna be very tough and resistant researchers. So thank you for making it here until the last day. And as Carlos said, we still have a workshop that, if I'm correct, our colleague Ivan Pintor just told me that also some of the master students for the film and media program will be there at the workshop. So I'm sure it's gonna be a fruitful one. In order to, I think this is a very glad occasion. On the one hand, because it shows the collaboration between different research groups at the department, because I find it significant, that Professor Scolari asked us from Group Cinema. You know that there are 9 different research groups, and just the action or the decision of a colleague from another research group, Medium, asking us to come here and welcome you, Ruggero. I think it shows something of a transversal way of working, and sharing affinities in the department. On the other hand, on a personal level, I am also glad. I just told you, because for the last 10 years we've been, crossing paths through corridors, no.
Yeah, you are part of IMAX.
Exactly. I was going to say that right now, also with Alan Salvador, like in many different conferences, but we never had the chance to share a table. So it's great to do that now and to introduce you. Professor Ruggero is full professor of media semiotics at the Università Cattolica di Milano. He is a distinguished member and actually the representative of that institution within the IMAX Alliance. The IMAX is a fantastic research network, it just changed the numbers, maybe 14, 15, leading universities, sometimes, but the leading universities of film studies research in Europe. He's been the recipient of many awards, like the Limina Award, which is the most prestigious award for film and cinema studies research, for 2 of your books, if I'm not mistaken. And besides being like really happy to have you here, I just told you, I don't want to do this reiterative thing of just, reading your CV, because your CV is already available online, and you can Google that right now, Google Scholar, Academia Edu, your seat profile, and a fantastic website, that you have, Ruggero, with interesting paths. So instead of doing that, instead of like summarizing or reading that, I just want to very briefly highlight 2 aspects that seem to me, or I would say seem to us. I also spoke yesterday with Ivan Pintor, about you coming here and what we could say. So 2 ideas, or 2 approaches to research that I think are present in your body of work. The first one is the use of comparative methodologies, but from a background of medium specificity. And the second one is the focus on devices, technologies, and materialities of audiovisual culture. What do I mean by that? The first one, this idea of being able to grasp semiotic connections, but also having the knowledge and the depth of a specific field, I think is very important. And the fact that you've have an active presence in the most important forums, in NEX, in the Film Forum conferences, it shows that you were trained in a specific field, film studies, film history, that you have a tradition, but that you are able in your research, in your publications, to go beyond that. For me, that's very important. It's not the same thing to just compare superficially things without having like roots in a tradition, in a context. And I think the work of Professor Eugeni shows very well that, the evolution from traditional film studies many years ago, or the theories of film, towards the connections of post-cinema and other aspects. Your work on I was reading the other day one of your latest chapters on this topic that you've been researching, hypnosis in cinema. That's specific, that's concrete, and more importantly, that goes back to early cinema, silent cinema. And you can see there how Ruggero goes from Irma Web to Mabuse to augmented reality. And that for the researchers like us in Group Cinema who come from that tradition of art history, iconography, film studies, even if we like to compare stuff, we also do comparative things with film and video games and television, other aspects, but it shows something. I don't know if I'm being clear. This is specificity, and from that specificity, you are able to compare, and you do the semiotic jump. That shows, I just wrote that last night, a critical depth, belonging to a historical tradition, medium knowledge, and being familiar with author theory to go beyond it. But I think that to trash or to go beyond author theory, you have to know author theory. And you have worked in that line. I think your book about Kubrick has been re-edited many times also in Italy. So like the specificity of an author, and then being able to compare. So that was the first aspect. And the second one would be this focus that you share with Carlos a lot, on interfaces, on devices, on technologies, on what Foucault, and I think you also quote in some of your text, Giorgio Agamben, called the apparatus, or the dispositif. So that brings Professor Eugeni research nearer to what? To political critique, to the economical background of the technologies, of the devices, and that's the kind of research you've been developing lately a lot. I would just like to quote a couple of publications, of the more recent ones. If you want to check that out, it can be useful. The first one, Capitale algoritmico, 5 dispositivi postmediale più 1, that just came out, like this year or last year? A couple of months. Okay, so it's super recent. And there you analyze different things from Google Glasses to tridimensional camera devices, visual dispositifs, from night vision to military applications, the aviation, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, microphotography. So from that specificity that I mentioned before, tackling the technology and how technology is shaping the present. And then another publication, and I will shut up and let you start with the conference, because that's what we want to do, listen to you. It does the CIMIT project, which is, if I understand correctly, a project that it's framed within this context of the Society of Cognitive Studies, of moving images, and it has to do with your body of work about neurofilmology, and more scientific, also quantitative, experimental methodologies to talk about film and media history. So I think that's also something to be aware of or to underline. And I don't know, I think that's it. The last thing I wanted to say, I wrote down like transnational scope. I wrote down the Italian thing, What is the Italian thing, Carlos? Transnational scope, but with a non-Anglo-centric focus. I think that's very important. I also want to highlight that. And having, I think, trained with Francesco Cassetti for years. Francesco Cassetti came here in the year 2005, Ivan, for CISEC, when Domenic Fon, our beloved, and tremendous, excessive full professor that sadly is no longer with us, invited him to a conference. And Francesco Cassetti is one, and Ruggero, it's another scholar who has traveled around Europe. It's your mentor, But I was thinking also about Laura Rascaroli, Antonio Somaini, Giovanna Fossati, in my generation, Marta Bonni. And you could say, like the Italians, like they've colonized, the whole film and media studies in a good way.
Italians do it better, but it was the tiramisu.
I think so. I don't know exactly what it is, but no, it's just true. It's also a cliche, but in the case of film and media studies, it's true. Like it's people, and you've been developing this work, amplifying the networks, and you are working. You have been also invited professor in Sorbonne Nouvelle, Paris 3, Paris 4, in the Goethe Universität in Frankfurt, like in the best film studies centers. So it's an Italian network. The only thing I wanted to underline is how important the fact that you write in Italian and also publish in English, in French. I think that's important to stress that in this context of the PhD program, because there are some scholars and you are going to be sharing ideas, but also competing with these scholars who only speak English, and that's a colonial standpoint. Like they will only speak English, you'll find them in conferences and everything, but they will not cherish and take care of their own languages, like mother languages. But in your case, and the case of these other scholars, you are combining and taking care of your own language, of your own traditions, and at the same time being in the important forums, international forums. This always makes me think, and the comparison is perhaps too much, but of Samuel Beckett, of this idea of writing in another language, to do minor literature. I speak English, but I will write in French. I will do that. And I think this humility for research is very important. And as Sioran said, one does not inhabit a country, one inhabits a language. And the fact that you Italians are doing it better, colonizing the world, I think it's nice and it's very representative of film studies. So thank you very, very much, Ruggero. I will now sit with the rest of the audience, and we are very excited to listen to your presentation today, your keynote speech titled "Disguised Reality, an Easy but Effective Introduction to the New Economy of Light."
Thank you so much for this, first of all, for this invitation and this for beautiful presentation. I'm really grateful to you. Well, yes, actually my work essentially consists in trying to blend or to build dialogues between different approaches intended both as disciplines, theories, but also as methodologies. So, for instance, I am also working on a dialogue between semiotics and neurosciences. But in this case, what is at stake here is another kind of dialogue between visual and media studies on the one hand, and the political economy of the political economy of images, I would say, producing what I call a political economy of light. But as we'll see, it's not just a political economy of light, it's at least a political economy of light, of images, of data, blended and, so to say, entangled together within the new kind of images, the algorithmic images. I will consider in this speech. So, in a nutshell, I want to introduce a reflection on the status that images have acquired within what we today we call digital capitalism, data capitalism, platform society. I am referring to Dan Schiller, to Jose Van Dijk, and Nick Couldry, and many others. In order to pursue this reflection, I will use a specific example, a kind of example I haven't used in my book. Is for me a new field of research, a little field of research, that is the video filters for face distortion or manipulation effect that are spreading within visual social media such as Instagram, but also TikTok, Snapchat, and other. I will define this kind of image disguised reality. In the afternoon, I will I'm going to speak about extended reality. Extended reality is a kind of a cover term, a term covering a different kind of phenomena, including disguised reality or mixed reality. But in this case, I will focus on this particular kind of images. So let me start from a particular episode. In August 2019, an update to Instagram permitted the user to submit their own filters to the app's effect gallery. Some of these new effects, such as the very trendy, the very popular one, Fix Me, the one on the left, when applied to selfies, would mimic the effects of facelifts, Botox injection, and other kind of aesthetical surgeries. In October 2019, Instagram decided to ban the publication of this kind of effects since it was considered a damage, especially for young people. In particular, there was some claims that images depicting self-harm, this kind of images caused self-harm, depression, and contributed to a 14-year-old British teenager's suicide. However, this decision, the decision to ban the AR filters was short-lived, since in August 6th, 2020, the platform decided to reintroduce face distortion effects. And, well, you can read starting today, we will once again allow fast altering effects and so on, but changing the shape, size, but this kind of effect, well, it was completely rebranded with the idea of a creative lab. So with the creation of Spark, the community of Spark AR creators within Instagram, Instagram's managers proposed that the AR effects are the tools through which a community of creators can express their creativity, their innovation, their, I'm citing, artistic perspectives. Actually, we have to say that we must recognize that under this artistic surface lays a more material and effective phenomena, which is typically financial and economical. The business of face manipulation effects is widespread, is growing. They are used by more than 1 billion people a month, just on Instagram, letting aside Snapchat and TikTok. The Spark AR creators community counts more than 600,000 members, and we have today a total more than 3 million effects available for user. and they are presently expanding on other Facebook, the former Facebook, the present Meta society, the Meta company platforms. And they involve a considerable flow of money, since AR filters are partly free, and as such they contribute to the flow to gathering people, audiences on the platform, and partly for sale, and partly provided in form of branded content by different kind of companies, fashion, cosmetic, plastic surgery, steel. Well, we can watch them some, and okay.
Spark AR. If you turned into today's keynote, you heard about the big bets and latest efforts on the road to AR glasses. And one of those, of course, is Spark, and the thriving community that we're supporting today. Spark has captured the hearts and imaginations of so many types of people, from students to designers to animators and developers, all coming together all over the world to help shape and define this new medium. In fact, over the last year, Spark has been used by over 400,000 creators from over 190 countries. From the start, we intended Spark to be inclusive. We have the opportunity to empower everyone to share their unique perspective. And that is why I'm so happy to share that over half of Spark Studio's monthly users are female. It's an exciting time to be a Spark creator. AR is more popular than ever, with people across Instagram and Facebook all coming together to use effects to connect with their friends. To date, our creators have published over 1 million effects. And more than 150 of those effect creators have over 1 billion views, like Instagram Reels. Now video creators can use your AR effects in Reels. Everything published in Instagram works on Reels too. And we're excited to share that we're opening up Messenger and Portal to third-party effects beginning early next year.
Okay, she was the CEO of Spark AR, and Portal is a new platform from Meta, who is going to be released in the next month, completely devoted to AR effects. Well, actually, we have to recognize that a huge part of this kind of effort, this is me as Avatar and as Baby Yoda, and it's the best I can do with this kind of effort. No, I can't beautify myself more than. Anyway, well, a huge part is just funny, it's not anything, but another part, I think the major part of this kind of effects contribute to the so-called beautification, of the self. A beautification that is a bit worrying for many commentators, since it contributes to the so-called Snapchat or Instagram dysmorphia, that is, as you know, a mismatching between her actual self-image and the perceived self-image and the public one. a mismatching that can be, in some cases, also eerie and worrying, since, for instance, today, especially young girls are subjects in a kind of social experiments concerning exactly the self-image and the self-esteeming. But there are even other problems, for instance, linked to race and racial identity, what is called colorism or whitewashing. At the basic level, the imaging chips in most personal cameras and in our smartphones are biased in order to correct the skin color and to reconduce them to whiter tonalities, and it is called whitewash. So this kind of alteration pose another kind of problems. Oh, I'm here. I am considering mostly the AR the solutions proposed by Instagram, but there are many other tools such as Lens, which is the Snapchat Studio Creator. All these apps can be easily downloaded, so that another trend of the rhetoric of the company is that any of us can become an AR creator. It is really easy to build basic effects and to upload it on the platforms. So, what is a bit strange or eerie is that even this kind of worrying can become part of marketing operations, of marketing campaign. For instance, the Dove soaps, a company belonging to Procter & Gamble, which was in the past accused to use palm oil from non-certified companies. Well, they presently push their communication and focus their communication on the self-esteem and on the problems posed by dysmorphia. Okay, Well, the problem now is how to define, how to approach, how to consider this kind of images. Well, as I say, that they are defined as augmented reality. AR stands for augmented reality, or redefined reality. We are redefining reality. That's the claim of AR Spark community. Well, from a technical point of view, it is not properly augmented reality, but rather we can define it as mixed reality. I'll explain why, but well, in a nutshell, mixed reality means that two different flows of data, the one coming from the cameras, and the other one coming from algorithms and graphical elaboration, are blended, are mixed, so that the distortion effects operate directly on data coming from photographs, that is, data coming from pattern of photons. Anyway, mixed reality, but I prefer to define this kind as disguised reality. And I think from a theoretical point of view, it should be interesting to work on the concept of mask, an algorithmic mask, and what is today, what can be today a mask within the algorithmic capitalism, within the platform society. Well, I will propose to consider these kind of disguised reality or mixed reality images from three complementary points of view. First of all, as technological objects, then as practical objects, and finally as political, economic objects. So I will develop each of these points in the following of this speech, and starting from an approach to this kind of images as technological objects. Well, as you know, in the 80s, the Czech philosopher Wilhelm Flusser defined the modern pictures provided by film and television as technical images. And well, the technical images are the product of what Friedrich Rittler called modern optical media. Flusser had in mind mainly film or television. In this case, the logic of production and consumption of images is based on the translation of patterns of photons in, well, on a film, but in the case of television, in patterns of electrons. These patterns of electrons are transmitted by Hertzian waves to cathode ray tube that return the patterns of electron in patterns of photon, thanks to the fluorescent screen. Well, this way of functioning of image building and showing and displaying has been deeply modified in contemporary images, such as the AR filters. In this case, we find patterns of photon referring to sensors, as well as equation and the data referring to interfaces. Thanks to both sensors and interfaces, all these kind of elements are translated into the data sets, digital data sets. Data sets can be manipulated. For instance, when we change the visual parameters of a photograph, but they can also be combined, as in the case of AR filters, or they can be extracted, just in the case of, for instance, the other levels of face recognition, or other, for instance, the biometric recognition. Well, on this basis, data sets are translated into more complex data cubes. And data cubes can be visualized or not. In many cases, these data cubes are not visualized. They are directly transmitted to actuators, to pragmatic or practical actuators, which are called effectors, such as robotic arms or so on. In other cases, such as the cases we are considering, data cubes are partially visualized through sensorial actuators, that is screens. So as you can notice, the logic linking the production and the displaying of the images are completely different, since we don't have a direct relation between patterns of photons and a surface displaying images. We have a kind of relation deeply mediated and interpolated and influenced by the datafication, the dataism, the present so-called present dataism, the datafication of the real world. From this point of view, it is important to consider that, as I said, AR filters are very different from the old Photoshop effects, because in the Photoshop effects we just had a case of manipulation of data. In this case, we have a combination and also an extraction of data. So we don't have the manipulation of a data set. We have the creation of a data cube, and then the visualization of this data cube. So in this case, we can find a new generation of algorithms, AI, machine learning, self-learning algorithms, which are the same that operate in face recognition with our devices, or in deep fakes effects, or today in many special effects, cinematographic special effects. To sum up, so how to consider these guised reality effects? We can define them not any longer as technical images, but rather as technological, algorithmic images in order to underline this world, this complex transformation of the logic of visualization. I think that we can speak today of apparition of this, not properly of displaying, but the images are not appearing to us. They are visualizing data for us. And so, as many other friends and colleagues say, we don't have any more icons. For instance, Andrea Pinotti, a colleague from aesthetics, is working on the idea that contemporary images are an-iconic. That is, all the Western tradition on representation, which was surviving, especially in modern times, within the model of perspective, is today overcome by the algorithmic images with our an-iconic representatives. They don't express a part of the world. They are expressing a structure of data. So from this point of view, we can say that we can call them visual algorithms. And we have to, first of all, we have to outline their technological nature. Second, we must, I think, consider this kind of images as practical objects. They are not made to be seen. They are made to act, to operate within reality. In many ways, let me start from a personal example. Well, the web is full of facial analysis services and platforms. For instance, the Coves Studio platform provides a free facial aesthetics consultancy service. You can try it if you want. And artificial intelligence analyzes your face, starting from yourself, your photograph, and predicts your aesthetical flows and their probability of manifestation, and at the same time suggests appropriate cosmetic surgery and cosmetic products that help prevent or fix these more or less dramatic failures. Well, similarly, Face++, a Chinese platform working in English, offers a series of free services, and in particular the beauty scoring system. The beauty scoring system is a service that finds the percentage grade of attractiveness, of likely attractiveness, your attractiveness. In other terms, if you want to when you have to choose a photograph for your Tinder profile, well, you should submit it to Face++ in order to ask the platform to calculate your percentage of beautiness, both for a female audience and for a male audience. That an interesting tool. Well, these practices can be considered frivolous, and they actually are. However, they are based on very complex and advanced technologies of face recognition that derive from and lead to less innocent and frivolous uses. For instance, For instance, many investigation journalists of the Intercept, which is a platform of investigative journalism based in USA, found that TikTok moderators were invited to discard making use of artificial intelligence tools similar to them that decide my beautiness, to discard ugly facial looks, disformatted face, function, lack of front teeth, senior people with too many wrinkles, obvious facial scars, and facial deformities, and other kind of flaws and of aesthetic failures. But there are also there are today algorithms which are charged to discard ugly faces, but there are other scarier uses. Remind the Face++ platform. Face++ platform is implemented from a technological point of view by MAGV, which is one of the major company for face recognition and for biometrical recognition in China. Last year, in May, 2 years ago, in May 2019, the NGO Human Rights Watch reported that parts of Face++ code was used by the Chinese government to collect data and track the Uyghur community in Xinjiang. Later, the involvement of the MAGV in the Uyghur case, today it is still a bit controversial since in June 2019, Human Rights Watch released a correction stating that the MAGV did not appear to have collaborated on this project. Nonetheless, the involvement of MAGV in the Chinese government surveillance network is a proven fact. So the same algorithms implementing the Face++ database are operating in Chinese government surveillance. In the Western world, the situation is different, but it is still worrying. A 2021 report from the congressional request from GAO is a government institution requested to provide a report on sensitive topics to government to the Congress. Stated that 18 of 24 agencies reported using a face recognition technology system for different purposes, and 10 agencies are developing new FRT systems, and they are used in different fields, from cybersecurity, law enforcement, physical security, and so on. But the algorithmic engine is always the same. You have, these are pictures from this report, which is very interesting to find out if you want on the web. Well, there is a first step of capture of the pattern of photons of your face. Then there is a detection and consequently the creation of a facial template. Is the same technique of the ARFX. On the basis of this facial template, we can have two paths. On the one hand, the system can try to identify you on the basis of a pre-recorded image of your face. It is exactly what happens with your phone, with your smartphone. Or the algorithms, the artificial intelligence, can try to identify your faces among a huge quantity of faces, for instance, from images taken from surveillance cameras. And I'm going to show you an example of this kind. The most important company working for a great part, most of American institutions, American agencies, is Clearview AI. Clearview has been criticized for having scratched images of faces from a huge number of databases, especially social platform, and it's easy that your face is part of Clearview huge database. And well, the company is presently marketing itself as the most effective tools against criminality. Let me show a video, a promotional video.
19, Las Vegas, Nevada. A web services provider alerted authorities after a user received images depicting the sexual abuse of a young girl. The only clue was an adult face visible in one image. Investigators turned to Clearview AI. Clearview AI is a facial recognition platform that contains more than 3 billion images from the public internet. It is used by law enforcement agencies to generate investigative leads. Using this platform, a potential match was found. The suspect appeared in the background of an image. Detectives were able to positively identify the man. A search of his electronic devices revealed that he was creating child sex abuse material to share on the dark web. The 7-year-old victim had been under his supervisory control. The man was arrested and the child victim was rescued. Clearview AI has revolutionized how we are able to identify and rescue children, according to Aaron Burke, Chief of Homeland Security's Child Exploitation Investigations Unit. Without Clearview AI, there was no way we would have found that guy. He pleaded guilty in February 2020 and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. January 6, 2021. Washington, D.C. Millions watched as rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol. Around the country, law enforcement agencies turned to Clearview AI. Among them was the Miami Police Department. They forwarded 13 potential matches to the FBI. Clearview AI saw a surge in usage immediately after the riot. In the weeks that followed, federal prosecutors have issued over 900 warrants and charged more than 350 individuals. At Clearview AI, Our mission is to support law enforcement to make where we live, work, and play a safer place. Clearview AI, securing our communities.
You can notice how the rhetorics. Semiotics is really useful in these cases, as you can identify the different mythologies underlying this kind of communication. So the tone of voice, not the tone of voice, for instance, the brand, and the kind of crimes, a sexual crime and a political one, the use of the rhetoric of the defending and protecting communities, which has exactly, the communities are exactly the kind of object of surveillance. And, but, well, we can, for instance, the use of blue and of blue colors, which is reassuring, and many other particulars are extremely interesting. But anyway, from this point of view, we can say that algorithm images tends to blur boundaries between media use and practical uses. So the same technologies, both of capturing, both of extracting patterns of photons and visualizing the data cubes and of showing, and between these two poles, the same technologies of face recognition, of data matching, are used both in the field of media, the more frivolous field, if you want, of media, of filters and so on, and on fields, more practical fields with a web of social and political consequences. From this point of view, well, we live within what I call a post-media condition. A post-media is a condition in which the boundaries of media are more and more erased, are more and more blurring. And finally, we can recognize that visual algorithms are practical operational tools. What I said before, they are not pictures, they are not icons, they are not representations. They are effective tools. I think it is not by chance that today more and more visual studies are considering images as actants, as social actors, as effective presences within the social contexts. The idea of performing, enacting images of pictures endowed with agency is, as you know, a widespread idea today in visual studies. And I think it depends on the new kind of images we are dealing with. That is what I call algorithmic images, which are actually practical tools, which are devoted to practical use, even though in some cases they are presented just as pictures. Even though in many cases the ideology of the pure visibility of the transparency, of the contemplation of image is still active, but it is a mythology. It is just an ideological trick. So we can come to the last part. On this basis, I propose to consider the images as entangled with within a web of political economical dynamics. Well, we have to clarify what I intend with economics. Economics is not just referred to money, to finance, to commodities, but I think we have to recover a more original idea of economy as regulated, managed flows of resources within a shared space, within a common space. So the way resources are managed, the way they are capitalized, the way they are extracted, produced, capitalized, well, it depends on collective choices. And so any economies is political, as Marx said, since it concerns a community, since it concerns not just an individual dealing with an environment, but an entire community dealing with relationship, linking each other, and from this point of view, linking and regulating their relationships with environments. If we consider economies as regulated flows of resources, we can reconsider the AR filters, but more generally the algorithmic images, as a kind of hub for exchanging different kind of resources, and then as we can recognize a key role of algorithmic images within the contemporary economical and political economical landscape. Firstly, within algorithmic images, we find the conversion, the conflation, I would say, the conflation of three kinds of resources, and consequently of three kinds of economies which are deeply connected within them. First, we have an economy of pictures, since images are measurable in terms of pixels. How many pixels? What is the resolution of this image? But secondly, we have a determined quantity of light. How many photons we have? What is the degree of light present, which is present within the images? How much light is in the images? How much light is necessary to display the image? And finally, as we said, an image, a technological image, visualize a determined data cube. So we find there also a quantity of data. we find a certain quantity of bits, of bytes, and so on. So if these three economies are converging within visual algorithms, it's also true that starting from them, we can notice other kind of economies, other kind of resources spreading from them. And from this point of view, visual algorithms are also dispositives for regulating both the exchange and the flow, the management of different kind of economies. Firstly, immaterial resources such as time, attention, reputation. Right? These are very important economies today. The reputation, the self-reputation, the self-esteem. Secondly, agentive resources, the possibility to act or not to act in social and political terms depends on, are linked to visual algorithms. The possibility that surveillance can stop my social action, my political action. And finally, there are also a series of material resources. No, Siri, I'm not speaking to you, thank you. I'm not speaking of audio surveillance, but just a visual one. Material resources, so all the market of big data, the micro-targeted, the micro-targeted publicity and the different kind of monetary and also financial flows linked to the images and the uses of images. Micro-targeted advertising. So, to sum up, and I'm really concluding, first, the takeaways of this speech are the following. Images are no longer just pictures or icons or representation. That is, they are not today. They are not just objects to be observed, to be contemplated. For instance, rather they are more and more practical, dispositive, which are capable of acting on the world, and especially they are able to regulate flows, exchanges between different multiple economies, different multiple types of resources which are more or less necessary for our life, including environmental resources, of course. So, from this point of view, we have to recognize that algorithmic images are tools of power, and that they play a fundamental role in distributing, redistributing, accumulating, but also extracting common resources. And finally, from the point of view I tried to propose, I think that we should open a dialogue between visual studies, media and visual studies, and political, economical ones. Today we have very, very good studies in the field of media. The political economy of media is well studied by many scholars, but the political economy of the visual, symbolic, semiotics semiotic aspects of image are less considered. So my invitation is to build a new kind of theoretical and analytical, especially I would say analytical tools, in order to grasp, in order to catch all the deep practical implications, entailments of the contemporary images. And thank you for your kind attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Ruggero. I think we all agree that this was like a fantastic talk, and it connects in many ways deeply with the research that many people are developing here. I was just thinking about Ivan Pintor or Mircea Oliva's work about the surveillance logics and the dynamics of power that we've been all been sort of analyzing. It's a big temptation to ask the first question, but I will not do that. I prefer to open this because this was such a political, I think, in a good sense, presentation. So we have first year PhD candidates here that I'm sure have questions for you, Ruggero. Also veterans that may have some questions, but come on.
Yeah, I would also like to hear from you, your research objects, and especially if they are linked to this field of interest.
Don't feel shy. We are among friends. Last day of the intense 2 weeks. Maybe Carlos, you want to break the ice? You can break the ice, and then we.
I realize that.
Want to?
No,
okay.
I just realized that the method for selection of young scholars in Pompeu Fabra is similar to Squid Game. So you are the last survivors.
Okay, well, I break the ice. Thank you, Ruggero, for the conference, for opening all these conversations. I have so many things here. Wow. Which one?
You are a young scholar.
Yeah.
A very young scholar.
Forever young. A general reflection. Then I go to the question. But 50 years ago, Roland Barthes used to say, okay, we have the image, the first level, and we have the connotation, the second level of the image, and there we have the ideology, the mythology. And if we see the evolution, the history of the last decades of culture, ideology is not anymore hidden inside the discourses. I think since Rambo, ideology in the first level, and the ideology is we discover very easily the ideology in these discourses. Maybe we have changed, and now that was in the second level. Now it's very easy for us to discover that. But let's say ideology now is in the first, in the denotation plane of the discourse of the text. Can we say that algorithms are now the second hidden level of everything? And there is the ideology in the algorithm, and it's the hidden part of everything in our culture. This should be something Roland Barthes 2.0, no? Barthes 2.0. And I have a very specific question. You published the post-media condition, la condizione post-mediale nel 2015, 2015. I've been in the last 6 years looking for a publisher here in Argentina, everywhere, to translate that book. No, because the money, translation, well, it's a great book. It's opening a lot of new levels of discussion. And you talk about the post-media condition. But as I'm working the concept of mediatization with different friends from Argentina and UK and Germany, why talking about post-media condition? Why not talking about hyper-mediatization of surveillance? You are going beyond the concept of media in that book. But all this description of these images and how they are used for surveillance, this is a mediatization of surveillance. But this is a really, Andreas Hepp talks about deep mediatization. My friend Mario Carloni in Argentina is talking about hyper-mediatization, hyper-mediatization. Can we talk about hyper-mediatization of surveillance in these cases? Ideas, just to discuss.
Thank you, Carlos. First point, yes and yes and no. I explain why. Yeah. Yes, because the algorithms are today the great place of inscription of biases and so of social intentions. No, because first, the way an algorithm inscribe social intention, social projects is very different, I think, from the mythological way of build, because it is not narrative. It is a different way of. It is a different way, but at the same time, yeah, no, but yes, and yes because, well, firstly, in the same vein of in the same way of the ideology work, we have an act of concealment so these intentions are disguised under the scientific or the algorithmic or the so-called the black box method, and so yes, from this point of view, but yes, for another reason, a bit different from perhaps not just Barthes was right, but also Guy Debord was very right. So that today ideology is part of the public discourse. It is a form of spectacle. The ideology has been spectacularized. For instance, I cited Squid Games, but not how, I cited intentionally the Dove spot, the Dove commercial, to outline how both ideologies and counter-ideologies are part of the same field of spectacle, the society of spectacle. So yes and no for this reason. For the second question, well, my problem with the term surveillance is that, well, I think we have surveillance, of course, following the surveillance studies and well, all the Foucaultian and Foucaultian theories, Foucaultian legacy. But today we have, I think, something wider, because surveillance is just a part, and I suspect a little part of a wider phenomenon of I can say, continuous, direct capturing of life in the same moment life is ongoing, to a translation into big data, into data forms. And we can overlapping the two phenomena, as for instance does Shoshana Zuboff. Yes, there is surveillance, but surveillance is a very particular and a special manifestation of a wider and more general phenomenon regarding medicine, regarding social life, the use of our devices, the smart cars, all the smart objects, and so on. So the algorithmic or big data capitalism, I think, does not overlap perfectly with surveillance capitalism. Yes, yes.
No, when I said hypermediatization of surveillance, when I said hypermediatization of surveillance,
yes. No, I
the most
agree.
important concept was hypermediatization.
Yes,
because
yes.
I agree with you. I'm very critical of Zuboff and these people that they have only a monodimensional approach to this problem, to this phenomenon.
Yeah.
But the tension was between a post-media condition, or why not talking about a hypermediatization?
Yes. It's just, I agree. It's just, well, the problem is that if you consider that media are reabsorbed in the wider field of digital algorithmic, so you can speak of post-media. If you consider that in this absorbing, media have been able to impose their own logics on the wider field of the digital. For instance, they have imposed the techniques of visualizing data, so you can speak of hypermediatization. I agree. These young scholars are very impatient.
Yeah, have many
There's a
questions.
PhD candidate.
No, I remember Sonia Livingston conference in ICA 2008 or 9. The title of the conference was "The Mediatization of Everything." So that's because, well, mediatization obviously is everywhere, and it's very difficult to not to be involved in any kind of mediatized process. That's all. Thank you.
Grazie.
Give the microphone to the older scholars.
I don't know if we have any hands or comments. The prefixes that we use, for analysis are very important. Hyper, post, trans. What prefix are you going to use? Perhaps in this case, Carlos, the authors you were talking about, they read or they've been reading Gilles Lipovetsky 10 years after. And I think the use of the hyper prefix is interesting, but I found other areas of tension and thought in your talk. And I have a question about that, but again, I think it's always more rewarding if anyone... Thank you, Gabriela. That's fantastic.
Anche possiamo in italiano, però. No, thank you very much for the talk. It was really inspiring, and I'm thinking, and related to what Carlos said, this idea of the hyper-mediatization of everything and these hidden algorithms that nevertheless are manipulating, turning these images into something else because of all the process included. Nevertheless, not just among scholars, regular people are receiving them, I would say, in a less and less critical way because it's hidden. How do you prompt critical reflection, again, not only among scholars, nowadays in the times of fake news, in the times of such a speedy race of images that pretend to be neutral, much more than in 1950, thinking about, you know, the television and all that. Nowadays, I think this is a huge question. How can we help, I mean, not only us, but regular people to be more critical about this daily reality that we carry and contribute to in our pockets, you know? So, huge question, I don't know.
Yes, it's true. I will split your question in two sub-questions. The first one is how to spread a critical attunement, a critical approach, a critical attitude. And I think it is a very important point, even through school, even through all the different places and occasions. But there is a prior question that is how to build a critical attitude. And in this sense, I think that in general, the critical studies on media are very good studies. I cited them in my introduction, but they risk to be too much general, and moreover, they risk to be too much deterministic. For instance, condemning all the uses of images. It is for this reason that, in my opinion, it is very useful to adopt a semiotic attitude. Semiotic attitude means to analyze different cases, singular cases, in a very, I would say, in a very positive in Foucaultian sense, in a very not biased way, without preconception, without ideological ideas, but with the aim to rebuild the web of strategies, both semiotics and not strictly semiotics. I'm thinking, for instance, to the actor network theory, which is semiotically inspired by Latour. And, well, we need patience. We don't need rage. We need the patience and we need time in order to analyze case by case how images are built, which are the underlying biases, which are the social, economical consequences, who have the responsibility of these particular choices, who is damaged by these particular choices. Usually they are black women, not Caucasic and races and so on. I think the best way to grow the best way to grow a critical attitude is analysis. This is, in short, my answer. Thank you.
Ruggero, I wrote down this sentence like, we need patience, we don't need rage. It's so good that it's in danger of being stolen by Unilever or Dove or some company to brand.
And we need soap.
Yeah, that's great. We have another question here and another one. We have like 3 questions. That's fantastic. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with this one.
Thank you. I have a question with regards to the company Clearview AI. that they scrape the internet and scrape the images for building that surveillance platform, right? So is there any code of conduct that regulates their actions? Because on one side, you are prompting the community that we are building platforms that are there to ensure your security. But on the other side, you're stealing their own property. So it's a paradox. You say, okay, we are bringing in more defensive mechanisms, but we are using publicly available images. So the paradox is we want to ensure security, but on the other hand, it's not ensured. So if the federal agencies are really much responsible for ensuring the security, are there on the cyber side any domain that is addressing these kind of platforms? Because these agencies are promoting these platforms too. So is there a backdoor diplomacy, or we say, okay, we can go ahead with it and there is no over-the-head umbrella that can protect citizens? So promotion goes side by side. You earn billions by selling the technology to the federal agencies, but where are our rights, right? So do we need to have a strong lobby, or where can a normal citizen start? Because I'm not a cyber expert, I'm just a normal citizen. So how do I know where do my rights begin with in the social paradigm? Thank you.
Yes, it's a very short answer. You perfectly catch the point. There are no strict rules in USA. In Europe is different. But what happened with the Cambridge Analytica, for instance, which was a British company, and they worked not on images but on textual posts and so on, while Clearview mainly works with images, but they both exploit regulatory flows, regulatory flow problems. And yeah, that's true. This is a big problem this is the reason why they are trying to legitimate themselves in terms of effective tools against crimes. But you're right. That's eerie. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this lecture. It was really very interesting. What I would like to ask is if if there's a study regarding the frequency of use of certain filters in order to identify like supply and demand patterns of a specific kind of images. And do we know if there's a predominant kind of technical image that is being most frequently used?
As far as I know, there are technical reports which are reserved from the companies such as Meta, Instagram, but there are data analytics from companies using AR effects which are today very, very widespread. For instance, with Gucci or Ray-Ban or many others companies, McDonald's, etc. But I had many difficulties in order to find out trustable data in this case, because I didn't find any public report. Just it is impossible to find out private data analytics and so on. Even the articles I cited, I showed, are based on impressions, on single case histories more than on trustable data. So even the MIT journalist or the Forbes journalist found evidently found difficult to find to find data. Yes.
So what we can do is like to identify the most used images that are being analyzed by journalists, so that we can have an idea of different precise that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Well, there are many fields of AR filters which are clearly we can clearly and easily identify. For instance, the beautifying filters, the filters or the filters proposing makeup, eyes makeup, eye makeups, or outfit. Now the new trend, the last trend, is to expand the filters from the face to the entire body, so that the body movements are tracked and disguised, transformed with flames. You can act with flames, and it is very effective. For instance, on TikTok, also Snapchat, Instagram is presently introducing this new technology of the body motion tracking, and well. But it is, from a scientific point of view, it is difficult because Instagram doesn't tell which are the more doesn't tell how many people use this kind of filters or these kind of filters. I think it is different, and it varies also on a geographical basis. But if you browse on Instagram or in Snapchat, the filters, you can find a huge gallery of effects.
Okay, so we have a final question here, and then we will close.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for your intervention. It has been amazing. Well, our disciplines are a bit different, but I'm trying to relate them just in order to take some profit. Well, I'm really interested. For example, one of the things that I will study in my thesis is about the creation of the concept terrorism, okay, in a specific, well, from a decolonial perspective, and I'm really interested, of course, in the mass surveillance and how different tools have helped in the creation of that concept. And just to try to make some relation, I would like to ask you if you know any author, any paper or thesis or theory that take that relationship between that mass surveillance and the creation of that concept. I know that it's...
Sorry, between the
mass surveillance, I mean the different tools of surveillance, and the creation of the concept terrorism. Because, for example, I'm really interested in how the mass media, the political discourses had created that profile, that profile of the potential terrorists. And I don't know if you know any tool or any study that has related that to things. Thank you. It's a bit difficult.
Yes, thank you. Well, yes, there are many studies about well, how the terrorism triggered the shift first from digital from magnetic cameras to the digital ones. More economical, and then after the 11th of September, from the digital, simple, basic surveillance to the algorithmic surveillance. For instance, David Lyons worked on it, and yes. So there is a link, and today more and more surveillance is algorithmic. I mean, the digital images are just a first. It's just a raw material. The digital images is just raw material for algorithmic digging. For instance, the number of the plates of the cars. A plate can be tracked in all his movements and the placement through different cameras, and or people can be recognized with face recognition through the digital cameras images. Other algorithms are used in order to improve the visual definition of cameras. It is very interesting because today the same algorithms are applied to film restoration, to digital film restoration. They are able to upgrade the definition of the image enormously. So, for instance, you can find the early time movies completely restored, completely changed because they are at 4,000 pixel definition, and the same thing has been applied. Oh, better to say, this kind of algorithms have been created exactly in order to improve the definition of the digital cameras, and so once again there is a link between surveillance and hypermediatization. But yes, the problem of mass surveillance and terrorism, especially in relation to the 11th of September, has been well studied. Once again, in general terms, I don't know singular cases, stories about it, but in general terms, it has been studied. Yes, not by me, but.
Okay, so
thank you.
I want to congratulate you all for the questions. No, you put Ruggero to the test, and I have two very brief announcements. The first one is that at 3 o'clock. The workshop with Professor Eugeni will take place here in the same space. And the second one, which is, I guess, happier, is that we have a coffee break waiting for us outside of the room. Finally, I think I speak in behalf of all my colleagues here from Group Cinema, from Group Medium, and from our whole department to really thank you, Ruggero, for the inspirational talk, and I hope we can continue talking about these topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks to you.